It's the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast, and we are live.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.
Hello, good evening, and welcome back to another live edition of the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast, brought to you by 90 Min. As ever, I'm your host, Harry Symeou, and on this edition, we're going to be looking back at the win in Piraeus. Arsenal running out 3-1 winners in the end. Got off to a really good start in the game after another individual error. It seemed as though we had pressed the self-destruct button again, and although it's not ideal that we conceded a goal this evening, goals from Gabriel and Mohamed Elneny ensured that Arsenal take a very, very strong lead back to the Emirates Stadium for the second leg. Big hello to everybody in the live chat. Big hello to everybody listening or watching this back on the replay. Hope you're all good. I want to say a big thank you to everybody who joined me for the live watch along because it was emotional. Good fun as always, but it was emotional. We've got plenty to discuss off the back of that game, as there always seems to be when it comes to Arsenal. A lot of it will sound a little bit repetitive, around the individual mistakes that just keep plaguing our game at the moment. We just can't seem to cut them out. And we'll start off with the initial team selection from Mikel Arteta, and he went with Leno in goal. Bellerin, as I thought, came back into the side. Tierney at left back. Gabriel, interestingly, come into the side at centre half alongside David Luiz. I think a lot of people probably would have played Pablo Mari, but of course, Gabriel, as I said during the watch along, probably is a little bit stronger physically. Probably was seen as somebody who could maybe cope with the physicality of the Olympiacos striker Youssef El Arabi a little bit better. And overall, I do think that a fit Gabriel is Mikel Arteta's first choice. And he's clearly been watching him of late in training and stuff and come to the conclusion that he was ready again to return to the side. And I thought he was a lot better tonight than he was in his last performance, which was against Benfica. So, I was okay with Gabriel's performance. I thought he did pretty well. David Luiz, for the most part, did pretty well. But of course, gave the ball away in the first half in a really, really dangerous area. Gave the ball away essentially on the edge of his 6-yard box and allowed, I think it was Masouras at the time, to just cut inside and get a shot away. And a better player, a better team punishes you for that. And that was the first one of the first signs that we had an error in us. And, there was one from Martin Ødegaard as well in the early stages where he played a ball across the pitch blindly in our defensive third, and we lost the ball. And I think it was Bruma that time who got a shot away from the edge of the penalty area. But fortunately, it was a poor effort, and Bernd Leno was equal to it. I thought Hector Bellerin had a good game tonight. I know a lot of eyebrows were raised when he was named in the team. Plenty of people would have preferred to see Cedric start, but I actually thought that Hector Bellerin had a good game tonight. Kieran Tierney, solid as always. In the midfield, Granit Xhaka had a really good game. Great to see him bounce back following that error that he made at Burnley, because he's taken a lot of criticism for that stat that everybody seems to like to band around about the fact that he's had X amount of mistakes that have led to goals, etc. Was doing the rounds. So I'm delighted that he kind of moved on from that and moved on from it pretty swiftly with a really good performance tonight. Thomas Partey alongside him, though, just simply wasn't very good. And I said this about Thomas Partey after the first half an hour against Burnley. I didn't think he looked right. I didn't think he looked good. I didn't think he looked solid. I didn't think he looked his usual dominating self. And I thought that was the case again tonight with Thomas Partey. And Mikel Arteta took him off after 55, 56 minutes tonight. And Mikel Arteta has since spoken about it. He was asked if it was a precautionary thing, if there was an injury, if there's a problem. And he said it was tactical. So he clearly wasn't happy with Thomas Partey's performance tonight. And I can't argue with Mikel on that. I think it was the right call. It's a bold call. When you go and spend £45 million on a player, you look to build your midfield around him. It's a bold call to do that, especially at that stage in the game. But I rate Mikel Arteta for doing that. And, you could see Thomas Partey was disappointed when he walked off of the pitch, but he just doesn't look like he's up with the pace at the moment. And, people will sit and they'll moan about Granit Xhaka when he doesn't play well, and they'll moan about Dani Ceballos when he doesn't play well. But, forget that Thomas Partey cost £45 million tonight. And I'm not saying that he's not a good player overall, but he's currently out of form. I mean, Camara in the Olympiacos midfield tonight looked just as dominating, if not more dominating, more mobile, more efficient than Thomas Partey. And I'm sure he doesn't even cost 5 million, let alone 45. So, this is not me digging out Thomas Partey, the player, in terms of what he's done in the past and his ability. But I don't think that Thomas Partey right now is playing anywhere near his maximum. And I thought he let us down a little bit tonight. And Mikel was absolutely spot on, in my opinion, to hook him off at the time he did. Bukayo Saka did okay tonight. Got into some good positions. Not quite there in terms of his top performances. I thought Martin Odegaard, though, was very good. Very busy. Very involved in everything that Arsenal did in an attacking sense. Scored a good goal. Obviously, I talked about that pass earlier on that he played across the box. And he did give the ball away a few times tonight, Martin Odegaard. But the reality is when you play in that number 10 position and your job essentially is to find the killer pass, is to play the pass, that opens the opposition defence up, then there will be times where you get it wrong and where you lose the ball. And sometimes those statistics are a little bit misleading. If you cast your mind back to when Alexis Sanchez was in the Arsenal side, and there were people who constantly berated Alexis Sanchez, particularly towards the end when we knew he wanted to leave. There were a lot of Arsenal fans that used to say, well, Alexis Sanchez gives the ball away too much. Yeah, but actually when you're trying to make things happen in that final third, that is going to happen. You are going to give the ball away more because the passes you're playing have a far greater risk attached to them than your passes would have if you were sitting in the deep midfield pivot and you're just playing 5-6 yard passes left and right. So I thought overall his performance was pretty good. So pleased with him. Aubameyang did okay as well. I thought starved of a bit of service, but I thought Olympiacos did a really good job on him, and he's a player that obviously Socrates knows extremely well, and I think they worked very hard on nullifying him, and they did it to good effect. But that's the point, right? We shouldn't be relying on one player to get us out of a hole all the time, and you need to spread it around. And when that player gets marked out of the game, you need the others to step up, and a couple of others around him tonight really, really did. And that's why ultimately Arsenal got the result that they got. I guess the elephant in the room is the goal that we conceded and the way it came about. And Dani Ceballos had just come on as a substitute at the time. During the live watch along, initially, I had a go at Dani Ceballos. And, I actually said when he came on during the watch along, I said these very words. I said, you know what, Dani Ceballos might be okay coping with the press because he's a little bit more mobile. He's a little bit more energetic on the ball. He turns quicker. He's a little bit more. He's got a little bit more guile about him. But unfortunately, he was given a pass that was just terrible. And I talked about Bernd Leno's role in the goal against Burnley at the weekend, and I spoke about the fact that as much as Granit Xhaka made a mistake, Bernd Leno's got to clear that. And does Bernd Leno not learn? From what happened on Saturday to Thursday, has he not learnt something from that? And the reason you can't completely dismiss Leno's responsibility here, and you can't just blame it on Dani Ceballos, is because Dani Ceballos is dropping into that hole. But Dani Ceballos doesn't have eyes in the back of his head, in the side of his head. He can't see what's going on all around him. But Bernd Leno can, because Bernd Leno is facing the play. And for me, it is unforgivable that for a second time in as many days, Bernd Leno has looked up. And in this situation, it was even worse because there were 4 players around Dani Ceballos and he's played that pass. And ultimately, after playing that pass, he's caught completely out of position. Youssef El Arabi, to his credit, does well to press Ceballos, wins the ball back. But plays it's not even a great finish from Yusuf El Arabi. It's not in the corner. It's because Bernd Leno's caught out of position that he can't get across and save it. So really frustrating to see that happen again. And I think actually Mikel Arteta's post-match interview tells you all you need to know about his thoughts on that and his thoughts on that situation. Mikel Arteta said that we need to know when to play those passes, and almost hinted and suggested that the fault laid with the goalkeeper for playing that pass. I think that Martin Keown in the studio tonight in BT Sport also agreed with that, and I agree with that. Initially, I looked at Ceballos and I went, great, it's another midfielder dallying on the ball a little bit too long, getting caught in possession, and there we go. But when you watch it back, you can just see that there are 4 players gathered around Dani Ceballos, closing in on him. And, as the goalkeeper, you have the luxury of seeing the game unfold in front of you. And for me, that's why the fault lies with Bernd Leno. That and the fact that it's the second time it's happened in as many days. Look, Arsenal made other mistakes tonight and almost gave away chances, almost gave away goals. They gave away chances, but fortunately they didn't result in goals. But, it looks like right now we're not being beaten by people. We're beating ourselves. And on the one hand, I've said this before, I look at it and I go, well, the positive side of that is that it's something that we can fix. It's something that's in our control, right? You can't fix things that are not in your control. This is in our control. But on the other side, you just find yourself so frustrated by it. I talked about it earlier today in the build up to the game that I didn't want to be facing another situation where I was looking at the game afterwards and saying that Mikel Arteta had been let down by lapses in concentration, poor decision making, because people talked about Granit Xhaka at the weekend and he got absolute pelters for what happened at Burnley, and people were calling for him not to be in the side. And then Dani Ceballos comes in the side and he gets caught in possession in a similar situation, and Thomas Partey plays and he's absolute shit, and Mohamed Elneny, who nobody wants to see in the team, comes on and scores an absolute worldie. So it just goes to show that they're also inconsistent and you can't rely on any of them. And this is why Arsenal are where they are, because consistency has been an issue. And that's why we stand a chance of winning the cup competition, because in a cup competition, if you can gear yourself up for that one game every 2 weeks, one game every 3 weeks, great. But in a league, you need to be consistent. And Arsenal, in terms of the players that we currently have at our disposal, just aren't consistent enough. People will talk about changing them and don't pick them and, pick somebody else. Well, the reality is Mikel can't click his fingers and get himself a completely new squad. So those inconsistencies, while we have error-prone players in and around the group, they're always going to be there. And the process of replacing those players, especially at a time like this where finances are tight, is going to be a long and arduous one. So, that's where we're at. But look, it's a really positive result. If you'd have told me before the game that we would have taken a 3-1 away win, I'd have bitten your arm off. 3 away goals, got the away leg out of the way. I know there's no fans, etc. That obviously is a bit of a leveler when you're going away from home, but we have to deal with the same thing in the second leg. So, let's it'd be nice, wouldn't it, if we could play every round and every game in the Yorgos Karaiskakis Stadium, because it feels like a bit of a happy hunting ground for us at the moment. But overall, it's a really, really positive night, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. I touched on Mohamed Elneny's goal, absolute screamer, and the Egyptian Pirlo, I called him during the watch along. And I put a tweet out almost like tongue in cheek sort of after the game ended. And I said, well, I'm still waiting for our £45 million midfielder to score a goal like the Egyptian Pirlo did. What a goal it was. Really good strike. And what I love about it, I know Jose Sarr gets an arm on it, but what I love is when you hit a shot and it sort of curves away from the goalkeeper. So the goalkeeper's diving, but the ball is all the time spinning away. It just is so great on the eye, especially when you see that angle from behind it. And Jose Sarr got an arm to it, but he couldn't keep it out. Some of you asking in the chat if the Portuguese goalkeeper should have done better for Martin Odegaard's goal, and I think he probably should have. you look at it again and you can see when you watch that angle from behind the ball that the ball was hit with lots of velocity, lots of spin, and there was a lot of movement between that ball leaving Martin Odegaard's foot and hitting the back of the net. And I think it's this thing that continental goalkeepers in particular have, where it is they look at a shot like that and they don't want to try and catch it. They don't want to risk catching it. And I think a more traditional goalkeeper, i.e., let's say a David Seaman, for example, probably puts both arms up like that to try and deal with it. But nowadays, you see goalkeepers kind of swish at the ball, almost punch the ball. And you can see Sarr does that, doesn't he? And it just catches, he makes contact with it, but it ends up in the back of the net. Loved Gabriel's goal as well. Sensational header, really powerful header. And it's one of those headers where, it needed to be spot on to catch the goalkeeper out. Good delivery into the box from Willie. And I was cursing when that corner was taken short initially because I thought, what are you doing? But he just slightly changed the angle and put a delivery in towards the far post. And there was Gabriel to head home and put Arsenal back in front. Christos in the chat says, Harry, which goal was the best for you? For me, the goal I enjoyed the most was the Gabriel one. I love seeing centre-halves come forward and win really, really powerful headers like that. Accurate, powerful, desire to get on the end of it. Great to see for me. I know El Neni's strike was special. Odegaard's strike was a lethal one too, but I really enjoyed the Gabriel goal for me. And because I thought that we weren't going to win the game after we made that mistake. So to go back in front was sensational. El Neni's goal was the cherry on the cake, but to get back in front at that point was really important. Also, I had a triple bet on tonight. I had an accumulator. I had Arsenal, Roma and Spurs all to win at 5-1. And so when Gabriel scored, that also contributed to my delight because Roma were 3-0 up at the time. Spurs were 2-0 up. So, yeah. Pretty good night overall. But, yeah, of the 3 goals, that was my favourite. What else are we going to talk about? In terms of the game itself, I talked about Thomas Partey and the decision to take him off. I thought it was the right decision. I can see some of you are asking me a little bit about that in the comments, so just kind of want to address that. But any questions that you have, drop them in the chat now. I may have missed some if you've already put them in the chat, so feel free to drop them in again because the chat has been consistently updating while I've been talking. So get your comments, get your thoughts, get your questions in the live chat, and I'll come to as many of those as I possibly can for the remainder of the stream. Just a quick reminder as well, if you haven't smashed that like button already, it is so important for the channel. So make sure you've done that if you haven't done so already. In fact, let me check in where we're at on likes because let's see where we are. There's over 230 of you watching us right now, and we've only got 44 likes. So if you haven't hit the like button already, guys, please do so. It really, really does help. Also, if you're interested in becoming a member of the channel, all you have to do is click on the link in the description and you can sign up to become a Chronicles of a Gooner member. We'd absolutely love to have you, and you get access to our Discord server as well as a number of other benefits. Right, let's go through the chat. Let's get some of your questions. This is a really good comment before I dive into the questions from A79. He says, just love how all the players were smiling ear to ear when El Neni scored. He's a special character. Yeah, El Neni's one of those players, right, that you can tell he's got the respect of his fellow professionals because his application is brilliant. Ability-wise, there are questions, obviously, right? We know he's not the greatest footballer in the world. Many will question whether he's good enough to be at Arsenal Football Club, including myself. But the thing with Mohamed El Neni is he knows his level, I think, and he knows that he is fortunate to be in a position where he's at a football club like Arsenal, albeit as a squad player. And I think that when you've got someone in the group like that who, despite having limitations, constantly gives his all, constantly makes an effort, I think you as a fellow professional probably really appreciate that and have a lot of respect for them. And I've been in football teams in the past where we had players like that who you knew weren't starters, but you knew they were a really important part of the dressing room and the setup. And when they did score, you were delighted for them. And that's how it is with Mohamed El Neni. So he is a special character, and you're absolutely right. Everybody loved it, didn't they? Sam, one of our members, says, Harry, would this result, with the advantage we have, change any of your starting 11s for the next 2 games? I think there will be rotation in the next couple of games. I think there was always going to be, regardless of what happened tonight. I think some of the changes that Mikel made sort of towards the end of the game tonight suggested that he had one eye on what's happening on Sunday, which is of course the North London derby, and we'll be previewing that properly tomorrow. So I look forward to bringing you that. But I mean, I think that you've just got to go all out for those games, right? I think you've got to go all out for the North London derby and all out for the second leg against Olympiacos, and then after that you can assess where we are and decide what you're going to do accordingly. But I just think that right now there will be some rotation, but there are certain players in that team for me that are nailed down players, at least in Mikel Arteta's eyes anyway. Bern Leno, Granit Xhaka, Thomas Partey. Normally, I know he was poor tonight, but Thomas Partey's one of them, Saka's one of them, Aubameyang's one of them, and then everybody else can be rotated. And Mikel Arteta has shown he's willing to rotate those. So I think you'll probably see a few tweaks to the team just to freshen it up a little bit. Nicolas Pepe didn't play very long tonight. Emile Smith-Rowe could come in at the weekend. Pablo Mari could come back in the side, for example. Cedric could come back in the side and nobody would bat an eyelid. So I think there will be changes. But as I say, I think those changes were always on the cards because of the schedule, because of the travelling, all of that stuff. So I don't think that it will have too much of an impact on the starting 11, because I think, in answer to your question, I know I've gone around the houses a bit, but I think the changes would have been in Mikel Arteta's mind prior, regardless. Rancid Pumpkin says, Marie or Holding on Sunday? No, I don't know. I don't know if he'll change the 2 central defenders on Sunday. Me, I wouldn't. I'd change one of them. And maybe I'd take David Luiz out. I know he's been a leader lately, but David Luiz has played a lot more football than Gabriel lately. So maybe I'd start one of them as a result of that. I don't know, but I hate messing around with defenses. I feel like defenses is the area in which you need the most stability. So no, I wouldn't make a double change at centre back, but I wouldn't be surprised if Mikel does it. As I say, I think there will be changes. I don't know what those changes will be. I do believe that there are certain players that he wants to have in the team every single week, but around them, he seems to be open to changes. So we'll have to wait and see. Jabulani says Pepe to start the North London derby. He should start for me because he's had a bit of a break, hasn't he? Yeah. He didn't play tonight, and I think it's only fair that, given his performances have been pretty good of late, that he deserves to play at the weekend. Big hello to Laith, who keeps saying poo in the chat. Must be about 7 years old. Here we go. T Talks says, what's your thoughts on the possibility, of Ryan getting a chance to play, even if it's just in the league? Leno is not learning from his mistakes. I actually was impressed with Matt Ryan in the game that he played. Was it Aston Villa away that he played in? I think it was Aston Villa away, where he had a really decent game. But he was brought in as a number 2 for me. And as much as Mikel Arteta will give the spin that, the goalkeepers are competing for the number 1 position, I don't really think they are at Arsenal. I think that Mikel Arteta's philosophy is very much that he has a number 1, and that rotation should only occur with the goalkeepers if it's 100% necessary. And, Bern Leno as a goalkeeper, I think, should be able to play on Thursday and Sunday. But, I can see where you're coming from. I can see why you're kind of debating that and even considering it, because at the end of the day, Bern Leno, he's not completely culpable for the one against Burnley. I think that's a bit of both. I think Xhaka and Leno are both to blame in that instance. But tonight, I thought he was the culprit. And yeah, if you want to breed that culture at the football club whereby players make mistakes, you leave them out, and you're serious about that, then yeah, you make a really good point. It's a consideration, but I can't see it happening just because I think that Mikel Arteta is not about the whole idea of rotating goalkeepers, and I think that Matt Ryan is clearly the number 2. Whether that's the right call or not remains to be seen. I don't think I'd throw Matt Ryan in a North London derby either, to be honest. Franklin says, Harry, quick one. How many subs are allowed in the Europa League? I'm losing track with a constant update with the football rules these days, honestly. You're allowed to make 5 changes in a Europa League game at the moment. Trond says, do you think it could be an injury to Partey? I don't think it is, just because I think that Mikel Arteta would have probably said that if it was in his post-match interview. I haven't seen his press conference yet. And of course, we'll touch on that and what comes out of the back of that on tomorrow's stream. But for me, I don't think it was. I think he was just unhappy with the level of performance. I think his comments suggested that. And his comments kind of gave that away. So no, I don't think it was an injury. I just don't think Thomas Partey was at the races tonight, and Mikel Arteta felt he needed to make a change because the game was potentially slipping away. Christos says, how many own goals will Socrates score in London? Hopefully a couple. But jokes aside, I thought he was really good tonight. I thought he really marshalled that defence well. You got to remember as well, he didn't have a centre-back next to him. He had Jan and Villa, who's a defensive midfield player, sitting alongside him. So he was a little bit out of his depth. But every time we got forward on Socrates' side, he was just a nuisance. He's always there in the right place, the right time, determined. I think he's a fantastic defender. It's just that he's not a great footballer, and that prevents him, being at a higher level, in my opinion, or being sort of admired by these managers who like to play the game in a certain way. But yeah, I thought he put in a really solid performance tonight. There was one instance where he won a header and the ball went up in the air, and he won the second header as well. And then the third time he came out and smashed the ball away. Proper old school defender, model professional. Really loved the guy. It's a shame we couldn't keep him in terms of having the character around the club. But I understand why Mikel moved him on, and ultimately it was the right call. What else have we got here? Thomas says, we have no chance of winning the European Cup as long as Arteta chooses a starting 11 with so many mistakes and little contribution in the future. Thomas, be happy, my friend. Be happy. As Bob Marley would say. Was it Bob Marley? Don't worry, be happy. Is that Bob Marley? If it's not, I'm a disgrace. You know what? Shall I check that out? Because I'm quite embarrassed that I don't know that. Is it? Yeah, Bob Marley. Don't worry, be happy. Be happy, Thomas. We're through. Whoa, we're not through. We're in the driving seat as far as this tie is concerned. And we showed great character tonight to bounce back after another setback, to make sure that the game didn't get away from us, to weather that little storm that Olympiacos brought to the table after they found that equaliser. So let's be positive about tonight. You can't say we have no chance of winning the European Cup. Worse teams than this Arsenal side have won the European Cup, the Europa League, I mean, over the years. So yeah, let's be positive, mate. Be positive. Broteca says, what do you think of Martinelli's game time? Obviously, that's going to come up again because he didn't get a look in. But I've said it quite a bit in the last few weeks. Nicolas Pepe is playing well at the minute. Willian is playing well at the moment. Had another decent game tonight. How can you justify putting Martinelli ahead of him at this minute in time? Excuse me. A few weeks ago, a month or so ago, you probably could have made that argument, but I don't think you can right now. Martinelli, as I've said time and time again, is his main focus right now, and Arsenal's main focus for him is to get back to full fitness, to make sure there's no recurrence of the injury, and to get him ready, in my opinion, for next season, where I actually think you'll probably see a slight adjustment to his position. I think the view is that he will become a centre forward. I'm not worried about it, but I know a lot of Arsenal fans are, and I would suggest at this stage don't be. Josh Hunter says, would you put Cedric in for the North London derby? Possibly. I think it would depend on how Bellerin recovers. But as I've said to you guys time and time again, in my opinion, in Mikel's view, Bellerin is the number one right back. And I thought Bellerin, for what it's worth, had a good game tonight. Big hello to Mike. Celebrated his birthday earlier this week as well. Happy birthday, man. He says, should Pepe be playing more minutes than recently, as his confidence seems to have grown? Yeah, I think that Pepe will probably play at the weekend. And I talked about the rotation, the need for it, and the likelihood of it. And I think that Nicolas Pepe is one of those players that you're likely to see rotated into the side for the North London derby. I think that there's a lot of players that you can look at now and say, well, maybe they deserve a little bit more in terms of minutes. But ultimately, that's why we're improving, right? Because, and I know the results haven't always reflected that, but that's why the performances are improving, because we've got lots of talent now that we can rotate, and we can keep people on their toes. Willian, when he comes in now, has to play well because Pepe's waiting in the wings. Martinelli's there as well. Lacazette's also on the bench, and that could mean Aubameyang moving to either flank. So there's a lot of competition in that sort of front four area now. If you think you've got Willian, Pepe, Saka, Martinelli, Odegaard, Lacazette, Aubameyang, Emile Smith-Rowe, that's 8 players for 4 positions. So it's encouraging. But I think he deserves to get more minutes. But I think the way we're playing at the moment, and the schedule that we're having to contend with, you've got to remember this season is like no other, and that is playing a part in the inconsistency of team selections. And it's not just Mikel Arteta. You look at Thomas Tuchel since he's taken over Chelsea. How many bloody changes he made to the team every single week? And then the same can be said for others. Jurgen Klopp makes changes. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, maybe not so much, but Pep Guardiola makes changes. So yeah, I just think it's the current state of the game. Pat Moyle says, has Gabriel pushed Marie out for Sunday? Quite possibly, but I think it will be interesting. What you've got to take into consideration with all these guys is how are they going to recover between now and Sunday, and how much of an impact will that have on whether or not he starts on Sunday. His performance was decent tonight, but it's about, is he going to recover in time? And I would have no concerns, fears or worries, I guess, if you told me now that Pablo Mari was going to play. And again, that is another indication. I talk about the front line and how we can rotate in those areas, but we're also building up a decent bank of centre-halves now. You look at David Luiz, you look at Gabriel, Pablo Mari, Rob Holding. I think you'd be okay with any of them playing, and that's the good thing. And that's what Mikel Arteta is doing here. He's building some depth. John P says, I loved Gabriel's awesome header, but at one point I thought the ref was going to the monitor. VAR is really taking the soul from the game. Totally ruined my celebration. Yeah, I know what you mean, John. And I thought they were going to look at the VAR as well. And there was absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think the delay was largely down to Jan and Villa going down injured. And that's what the kind of crowds were. But for me, I was doing the watch along, right? And when I'm doing the watch along, I'm doing my own commentary to you guys. So I can't hear what they're saying on the TV. And often, commentators in the stadium that, they can see wider than the TV screen. So they know when someone's going to come on, for example, because they can glance at the bench and see someone getting changed, or they know when the flag's gone up before we do, because they can glance over and see it. So it's a very different thing. And I was, without the commentary, I was worried that was going to be the case as well. But fortunately it wasn't. And the goal stood, and rightly so. But I get what you mean. There's a lot of situations now, isn't there, where the magic is, a goal goes in and you're a little bit reluctant as a supporter to celebrate. Benjamin says Saka needs a rest. Harry, would you start Laka on Sunday? I'm not sure. I think Aubameyang's playing quite well at the moment in that centre forward position, because he's got the right people around him at the minute, and I'd probably be tempted to stick with him. Probably be tempted to stick with him. Zvai says, I hate El Arabi celebrations. It haunts me. It's kind of like this, isn't it? I don't even know what it is. Like, have I done that right? But I know what you mean. It just brings back memories of last season, doesn't it? I didn't know this. Sam says Kane hobbled off for Spurs tonight and has ice on his leg, but now no doubt he'll be fit for Sunday. Yeah, Harry Kane just seems to just recover immaculately for Spurs. He gets injuries. You get told he's going to be out for 3-4 weeks, and within 2 weeks he just returns. It's unbelievable. But maybe that's why he gets injured so frequently, because he does, to be fair, get injured quite often. Big shout out to the old man, Mr. Tony Symeou, the man, the myth, the legend. He says, all these mistakes seem to be away from home. Is there a reason? Dad, if you wanted to ask me a question, you could have just rang me up, man. I don't think there is. I don't think there's any direct correlation to that, because, I mean, why would there be? You know, you're not talking about fans being in the stadium and pressure being applied on players off the back of that. I think the only impact that playing away maybe has is that when you're playing against a Burnley, for example, or an Olympiacos, they're probably a little bit more open to the idea of pressing you higher up the pitch when they're at home than they would in an away fixture. So in an away fixture, I think they naturally drop off of you a little bit more. And these mistakes are happening off the back of us being pressed high up in the pitch. And I would probably say that where you maybe have a point is that you wouldn't get closed down as aggressively on your own patch by a opponent who's, without being disrespectful, of a lower standard. So yeah, maybe that has something to do with it. But in terms of, yeah, I mean, I guess that's the only way I can think of it, is that maybe they're a little bit more open to the press higher up the pitch because they're at home. And away from home, maybe they'd be a little bit more passive and sit off of you a little bit. Maybe that's the reason. But ultimately, the mistakes are coming because we're making bad decisions in key moments. And I think Mikel Arteta's post-match said it all tonight. I think that he was absolutely livid with Bernd Leno for his role in that goal. He spoke about it after the Burnley game as well. And he said, you know, you'd play it. That's what we want to play, but you do it in the right moments. And he kind of hinted that he wasn't happy with Leno's role in the goal at Burnley. And I think tonight his post-match kind of confirmed that again. So as I say, and I'm trying to be positive, and my positive spin on it is that the only people that are beating us right now is ourselves. And that can be corrected far more easily than being blown off the park by teams that are miles better than you can be corrected. You know, it's about concentration. It's about making the right decisions. It's about not being so robotic. And we have become a little bit robotic in the way we're trying to play out from the back. And Bernd Leno's become robotic in the sense of, even when the alarm bells should be ringing, he still goes into kind of autopilot and plays that pass, which is causing us a problem. The Burnley one, look, I said it already. I half blame Xhaka for that. I half blame Leno for that one. But this time around, I think, you know, you're the goalkeeper. You can see the pitch in front of you. Ceballos can't see what's going on around him, behind him, but Bernd Leno can. And so to play that pass for me is unforgivable. And Martin makes a good point in the comments where he says it's possible it's overcoaching, scrabble brains, overthinking. Yeah, that could all be it. And that's what I'm talking about. It could be Arsenal trying so hard to embed something into their style of play that it's become a habit. It's become robotic, when actually you need to play the game and play the circumstances rather than allowing the circumstances to play you. And that's what happened at the end of the day. Gonna leave it there, I think, because it is getting late. It is 11:10 here in the UK. Another long day tomorrow. I'll be bringing you a couple of streams tomorrow. I'll be bringing you some North London Derby preview content, which I'm very much looking forward to doing. I'll be joined by the Oh What a Night guys from another podcast within the 90 Minute Network, a Spurs podcast. So I'll be chatting to those guys, and we'll get that bit of content out to you guys tomorrow around lunchtime. So I look forward to that. And yeah, have a good evening. Enjoy the rest of your night. Make sure you sleep well. I'm sure you will now, off the back of a really, really positive result from the Arsenal, really positive outcome in the first leg of our UEFA Europa League tie. Make sure you smash the like button if you haven't done so already. It really bloody helps. I know I sound like a broken record, but it is imperative to the channel that you do so. We're on 95 likes, so let's get to 100 likes by the time the outro plays. That's surely achievable. There's more than enough of you watching now to be able to do that. There's 250 of you watching at the minute across the multiple platforms, and of course there'll be loads of you to watch this back later and to listen to this back on the audio platform. So I'm going to leave it there. It's been a pleasure. Hope you've all enjoyed today's content. The team prediction and the team lineup and the prediction, the live watch along, and now the reaction show. So I'll be back tomorrow with more Arsenal related content. It's Friday tomorrow. What more do you want? A good Europa League win, and it's Friday. Until next time, take care.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to